Part 1. Be radiantly you. The antidote to exhaustion and judgment.
What if the cure for exhaustion isn't doing less, but pretending less?
What if peace isn't found in blending in, but in standing out, sincerely, authentically, and unapologetically?
I learned yesterday that in Sikh culture, people wear visible symbols of their faith, not to separate themselves, but to be seen as someone you can go to for help. What if in medicine we lived this way, radiant and recognizable in our authenticity, so others knew they could come to us for compassion, support, and help, rather than showing up perfectly and conforming? So, this episode is about being fully radiantly you as an act of freedom, but also of healing and potentially being of service as well. Thanks for joining us today at the Healing Medicine Podcast. Who are you listening to? I am Dr. Jessie Mahoney, and my co host is Dr. Ni Cheng Liang. We are two board certified physicians who bring decades of experience to the conversation about wellness. If you crave more ease and aspire to rediscover your love for medicine and life, one mindful step at a time, you are in the right place. We hope you'll love today's episode, and if so, please share it. A reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice. Welcome to today's episode, Be Radiantly You, the antidote to exhaustion and judgment. And this is part one of a two-part series where we are going to explore authenticity and energy management, one of my absolute favorite topics. In medicine, we are trained to conform, to blend in, to look polished and professional, and to keep other people happy, people pleasing. And this constant filtering, trying to fit in and chameleon ourselves, drains us, and it very often keeps us from being present and finding meaning in our work. And when we're not present, we have a hard time finding joy. And this episode stems from two things. The first part is actually my husband, who I often have points in my work where I will start to question myself, and I'll drop into that self-doubt of, I wonder, am I doing it right? Is it working? And, maybe I try to be extremely authentic. And so sometimes I get nervous that, like, maybe I should just start to fit in, or I should do things like other people do. And I very much do not do things like other people do. And I find sometimes at retreats where I think people come with a certain expectation of what a retreat is, and what I offer is pretty unique and different. And so I often drop into this moment of self-doubt. And my dear sweet husband will often say to me, like, can you just be you? Like, when you are you, it works and people love it, and you should just trust yourself and be you. And so I now have this mantra of, like, just be you. And every time I start to drop into that self-doubt and questioning, which was trained, I'm like, no, no, just be you. So my invitation with this episode is to take that advice for yourself. Be genuine and literally a little bit original, unique, and different. Be sincere. And when we do that, it's where we really shine like a lighthouse and offer hope and healing to others.
Let's delve in a little bit. Why is it hard to actually show up and be authentically ourselves and not conform to the expectations of others? So, in healthcare, especially in our training, we're conditioned to perform. Like, even on rounds, you're expected to present your patient. It's actually like called that. You have to present your patient to the attending, to like the team that's rounding. And then the medical school class of how to be a doctor teaches about professionalism. And like, I wonder if a hidden label meaning for this professionalism that's being taught is part of why we hide our own uniqueness and our humanity. We are taught to manage our tone, our laughter. So sometimes we have to mute that. or suppress it, and even our truth. And sometimes that can lead to a dampening of our intrinsic instinct to connect with others, whether it be our patients, our colleagues, our supervising attendings, even on a deeper, more human level.
Yeah, I think we become palatable, like likable, rather than um, present and deeply connected. It keeps us disconnected. And this idea of professionalism actually came up in my leadership group coaching. And what this professionalism is doing is muting individuality, and especially in sort of diversity realm. Like when we mute people's individuality, it makes it brings up a lot of issues. And I also think it makes it hard. People want to know us as humans. They want to know a little bit about us. They want a little spiciness. And when we take all that out, people don't see us as humans. And then we wonder why they treat us in different ways, maybe not acknowledging our humanity. I also think that peace is truly found when you show up authentically and showing up as you are. We learn that in order to belong, we have to blend in or fit in. But belonging then isn't real belonging. And we end up really pretending to belong. And I think that's where so many people in medicine feel like we don't belong. And trying to belong all the time and trying to be someone that you aren't is incredibly draining. And so, touching back on this idea of this seeker culture, and in this culture, which is so cool to me, people are encouraged to stand out. And you're standing out not to shine a light and have people, notice you, and not for egoic reasons, but out of service. And so the idea is to be visible so that other people can find you. And I love this idea in medicine and in healthcare and in coaching and in helping professions. Like, how can we be visible as who we are so that other people can find us? And what if, as physicians, we stood out being sincere and compassionate? And what if our individuality or distinctiveness was the signal that we're safe? We're someone who sees and honors that individuality in other people. And so I imagine what would it look like if we were all original, genuine, and unmistakably ourselves as physicians? It would be a very different place in a hospital or a clinic. I know that for me, the first thing I did was choose not to wear a white coat. It's a little bit easier in pediatrics, but it is part of your uniform. And we were taught that people might not respect you, especially as a woman, if you didn't wear a white coat. It does have some use in protecting you from bodily fluids, but other than that, it to me actually is sort makes you separate and really takes away the fun of perhaps what you wear. I used to wear really fun dresses and colorful shoes in pediatrics to add a little bit of levity to it. And I think if we could lean into that, it would be absolutely a powerful and amazing thing. This also reminds me of something I find where people who are looking for a life partner and maybe haven't found one yet, and the message is really to conform and be what this other person expects you to be. And I think this idea of being a lighthouse and standing out as you is going to attract the right person. So go do the things you like rather than do the things where you think you'll find a partner. Because I see that's where people find partners. If you have some random interest, like your husband's, what's it called? Coy judging, not fishing, but judging, right? Right. But when you see that, you like really have a good sense of who that person is. My husband loves these staghorn ferns. It gives you an idea of like who he is, who he cares for a plant in such depth. And so letting yourself shine through as unique and authentic is actually a way for other people to really see who you are.
Thank you so much for teaching me about a culture that I didn't realize that the certain way of dress was a beacon for service. And so I think we can take that intention for
Mm.
standing out as healers, like our scrubs. I am one actually that wears a white coat because I oftentimes actually get cold in the examining room. So it's literally like a jacket for me. And I find that putting my stethoscope in the right pocket where I'm right handed is easy access.
Yeah.
and also more sanitary than draping it around my neck. And then I have my cell phone, which is inevitably with me at all times because it kind of acts as a pager, but also because there's a dual authentication method for logging into the electronic medical record. Every single time I log into a different patient's chart or like have to open it up on the computer, there is a secret code that gets sent to my cell phone in order for me to get into the electronic medical record. So I like having more of a balance of weights on either side of my coats, and also our stethoscope. So for those who do not wear white coats in clinic, there's some place that you put your stethoscope. Oftentimes it's around your neck. So are these symbols, can they also be beacons of healers for all of us? Beacons of safety, a lighthouse for safety and healing and invitation. Can we embrace this 100% with our full authentic self? So, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the cost of pretending. You had already mentioned a couple times, Jesse, that pretending costs a lot of energy. That we are sometimes in training, either it be explicit or implicit, like modeling some of our attending or senior residents' behavior, that there's some editing that can sometimes go on for acceptance. And ultimately that drains joy, that can drain our ability to be in alignment with who we are and who we present ourselves to be to others while we are healers, particularly during medical training. Like, I remember taking the clinical skills exam, step 2, and then doing the practices for that with standardized patients, and how kinda artificial that was.
Mhm.
Because that's very different than how I actually practice in real life, having been in practice now for over 10 years as a pulmonologist. It's quite different. Like, I wasn't so austere and stoic, or sorry, I'm not so austere and stoic now, but I was back then because there was a list of check boxes that you had to complete, and you had to walk the patient through the entire physical exam in a kind of rote way. And also this persona of stoicism during rounds, for instance, that's widely portrayed in movies. The movie Patch Adams comes to mind. Granted, a lot of the presentations of healthcare in TV and in movies is done through a lens of entertainment, but like everyone that's listening to this podcast knows that some of the sitcoms and series and movies do portray very closely what actually happens in
Mhm.
medicine. Like the old a TV series ER comes to mind. Like that was pretty spot on, for instance. And
Mhm.
also Scrubs was also pretty spot on in terms of demonstrating the hierarchy of the different levels of trainees, for instance, in a hospital setting. So there is actually some truth in what's being presented in the media, and oftentimes you see that rounds are very objective, that there isn't a lot of emotion being presented on anyone's faces or tone. It's very matter of fact, when in actuality each time you encounter a patient, even during rounds, because you're inevitably standing outside the room or in the room with the patient, these are all opportunities for human connection, whether it be with the patient directly or with your actual team. And I definitely have become more comfortable in allowing myself to simply be myself as a mid career attending physician. And then looking back and speaking my own truth, I did have a sense of not wanting to do the wrong thing. So I
Mhm.
did feel like I needed to hold back for
Mhm.
fear of being perceived as too much, quote unquote, or quote unquote unprofessional. And of course, this is under the auspices of the maintenance of personal and professional boundaries, and within law, like obviously not breaking boundaries and being doing illegal things, but really allowing my own personality to shine through, recognizing that when I allow my personality to shine through, because I wouldn't describe myself as like a warm and fuzzy attending physician by any means. I'm very straightforward, I'm to the point, but I am 150% compassionate. But I am
Mhm.
not one to um uh people please
Mhm.
in the clinic setting anymore, uh,
Anyway,
because I honestly don't have time for it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm a very busy clinician, and, it is frankly, as you said, and I will be a testament to this, that being simply myself is much more efficient than trying to uphold, people-pleasing tendencies, even, like, societal expectations sometimes, um, especially when the upholding of societal expectations puts me out of alignment with my own values and my authentic self.
And I think we've talked in the last episode about moral injury, and that's where part of it comes from, right? It's out of your alignment, and but
Mhm,
there's different expectations. One thing you said that really struck me was we were taught that like there were all these rules and laws and we had to like stay in alignment, and that was a little bit used to sort of say you have to do it this way, and
mhm,
there was no room or latitude in there to be your unique self. And yet my guess is that, and this is from working with thousands of physicians, like almost every physician I know is a pretty good person whose unique self would not break any laws. And, you know, our unique selves wouldn't um, not pay attention to confidentiality and not, do something that was truly offensive. Now, um, I, it's not that I don't think we need those rules, but I think that they were used in a way that
mhm,
actually really made us be much more compliant and fit in, and made us look somewhat the same and be afraid. You mentioned that fear of
mhm.
doing something wrong.
Right.
And that fear of doing something wrong, that is an energy drain.
It
Um,
holds us back.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And it holds us back from actually doing things right.
Mhm.
When we make decisions from the fear of doing something wrong, we actually don't do things as well as we could if we were focusing on doing things right. And we probably still wouldn't do anything wrong, but it's that different energetic lens. And I think this idea of looking for energy leaks is a really powerful way. So many people feel drained and exhausted, and so they want to do things that give them energy. And my thought is plug the leaks, and you'll have more energy. And so the leak of not being aligned with who you are and your authentic self and your values is very energy draining. And I think some people listening to this podcast will work in places where they can't be their authentic self, and I would say if you can't be your authentic self and work in a place that's aligned with your human values, you don't have to be perfectly aligned, but with the things that really matter to you, that is probably not healthy for you. And part of the reason that I think a lot of systems are able to keep doing this is because people stay and they don't stand up and say, I'm not going to behave in that way. I think that we each get to decide what works for us, and it's going to be different, but trusting yourself and living your values is very important. I wanted to also bring to mind a poem that by Maya Angelou called Phenomenal You, which was I was made aware of this by the same person who told me about the secret culture. And this idea that um, being confidently yourself and being radiant, knowing, loving, and living your truth is really important. And that we don't have to be extraordinary. We can be just real. And we don't have to sparkle artificially. When we are whole, we sparkle. And for me, this really resonates. As many of you know from one of our earlier podcasts where we talked about our words for the year, sparkle is one of my words. And it wasn't that you want to sparkle artificially or make yourself all jazzy for no reason, but when you're yourself, I think people notice and they ask, you do sparkle, you shine, you show up. And so I love this idea. You don't have to be extraordinary. Um, and you don't need to sparkle artificially. When you're whole, you sparkle.
So I wanted to point out a fun literal analogy here. In making something sparkle, you can use glitter,
Mhm.
but you have to use glitter very intentionally and mindfully. Otherwise, it gets everywhere. And it
Yes.
is a lot of energy to try to clean up glitter that you did not intend to put in certain places.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
wanted to point that out.
Well, and some people, I'm thinking of a particular friend of yours who is very sparkly personality and likes to wear very sparkly outfits and, really shine in those outfits. But for me to wear something like that would not be authentically me. And so I think also you see these people who carry it off and to kind of figure out, well, what does your sparkle look like? What's your version of sparkle? And I think I have gotten to a place of shining. I said, but not sparkling. Yeah. Like, because sparkling is a little bit, for me, still a little edgy. It is one of my words. So I don't know if I have to keep it for next year or just get sparkling quick. One or the other. We'll see. I also love this thought that I think sometimes we think that being ourselves, we have to be feisty and fight back and be rebellious, and using that energy is actually also depleting. And so, what if being yourself is just reverence and or it's just truth and it just is? Because when it just is, it doesn't cost energy. And so, I really love this idea of not fighting to be you, literally just showing up as you. Again, it reminds me of the lighthouse. The lighthouse is you, and you just show up shining as you. It doesn't take a lot of energy. In fact, I think that lighthouses are pretty energy efficient. So we thought we'd turn our direction to some thoughts on how to be radiantly you. So, number one, my thought is to pause and be present and ask yourself, are you being honest or authentic? Are you being kind, which is being honest and authentic? Or are you fitting in? Are you being nice or people pleasing or performing? Or are you being you?
The pausing and being present can definitely be an opportunity for mindfulness. Often there's an inner knowing, an instinct, if you will, and sometimes there's a misalignment, and oftentimes a body is what tells you first, even before you are consciously aware.
That reminds me of our recent episode about knowing when you're complete in something. It's that like slight unsettled that you just are like, ooh, something doesn't feel quite right. And so slowing down and pausing so you can notice that, because when we're moving so fast and reacting, we often don't notice it.
The other invitation for how to be radiantly you is to be personalized. So, what do we mean by this? Give yourself permission to be uniquely you in how you practice, lead, listen, love, and ultimately in how you show up for life. Another invitation is to notice where you are the most authentically you already. Because I know that you have spaces and you have people, environments where you feel authentically you. So, can you bring that energy, that version of you, the authentic self, to other spaces so that it bleeds and goes basically into your entire reality of how you show up, especially when you are in the act of healing others. So, we'll give some personal examples.
So for me, I am probably my most authentic self when I'm teaching yoga. I literally almost don't have to think. I just show up in that yoga voice. And also, probably when I'm reading stories in yoga in particular.
Mhm.
And so I think when you lean into a space where you can just naturally be you and you just like drop into it, when you can recognize what that feels like, you can bring it to other places. And I remember bringing that to my pediatric practice. I would move through my day as if I were in a teaching a yoga class. And so you're sort of pausing and being present in each space. You're connecting, you're having a moment there, and then you're moving on. And that can be a really valuable way to do it. I am also that way in nature. And so to notice how you feel in nature, either in a tree or under a tree, or for me on a mountaintop. And I also want to point out that this can change over time. It used to be for me that it was at the beach, a very certain, like a Northern California beach, not a Hawaiian beach. But that for each of us, there is that sort of resonance of you feel the most like yourself, where you just feel at home. Um, these days, it's more in the trees or on a mountaintop, but it's always in the sunshine and it's always in a bright or lightish spot, not a glaring spot, but a bright or lightish spot. The other thing for me is I'm most able to be me in smaller groups, potentially not even like one on one. Um, I don't know if that's true. I have to think about that one, but definitely
Mhm,
not in a big group. It's
mhm.
really hard for me to be me in a big group. And so where I feel like I shine is in a small group of people where that's my comfort zone. And I guess two people could be that, but I really enjoy small groups and the interaction and the energy of other humans. And I am at this point in my life not a city person. I'm a small town person or connecting, even with a salesperson. So that would be the one-on-one. That's where I really feel like myself. And if I go back to my doctoring time, I really felt like myself in the exam room with kids, and I actually needed the kids, right? That's where I feel like mostly myself. And so to recognize, I know that's why I went into pediatrics. I never felt myself in exam rooms with only adults. For me, it was just immediately with the energy of a child, and the even with the parents with the energy of the child is very different. And so I think just noticing where you feel most you, i.e., most comfortable, where you are in flow, and you almost don't have to think about it. And then channel that version of you, get to know her and make decisions as her. And that is one of the most powerful ways to shine as radiantly as you can.
I will borrow one of your mentions, which is in nature. So, non-verbally, when I'm alone in nature, so I often take 1 or 2 hikes a week on nearby trails in San Diego, and I'm very, very blessed and very grateful that I can do this year round. I feel very much myself in silence, mindfully hiking in nature. Another aspect of nature is around beloved animals. So when I'm interacting with my 4 rabbits, actually looking back, like, definitely I feel very much at ease and myself, and my rabbits will either accept me for who I am or be grumpy about it. That's okay. And then also with my family. So my family, not just by marriage and by blood relation with my husband and my kids, but also close friends I consider my family, like you, Jessie. Like, I wanted to bring up a very real
Honored.
example of yesterday. When we were podcast recording, we both apparently got the black sweatshirt memo. We had not planned it. And we honestly both looked a little bit more frazzled than we usually did. Like, we definitely looked more frazzled yesterday than we look today.
Yes. Yeah. A little disheveled.
But I honestly, like, I did not feel the need to change my appearance for you, as you didn't feel the need to change your appearance for me. I felt very comfortable showing up just as I was, and with the energy that I was bringing as well. Like, I didn't feel a need to falsely, like, become hyper animated or have toxic positivity just because, quote unquote, that's the way that I'm supposed to show up for anyone.
Mhm.
So I wanted to point that out and be a little bit vulnerable about, even us two interacting when we're podcast recording. One whimsical time that I'm very much myself is when my family and I play Uno, the card game. There's a lot of banter, a lot of playful and sometimes not so playful competition that comes out, and wit that's pretty funny, whimsical, and ultimately very loving, with a lot of your phrase, loving amusement. So, yes.
So, my last suggestion on how to be radiantly you for today is to actually decide to be that or allow yourself to be it, or actually even go in a little bit further and make an active conscious choice. And one of the things that I have started doing, and I really enjoy it, is wearing certain things that make me happy or that like people consider sort of like, oh, that's Jessie. So many people know I wear this heart necklace, and when my first one broke, I just bought another one, and it has a giant heart on it. And for me, it's like some people call it like a statement piece. It's not really a statement piece. It's just a heart necklace, but it makes a statement, and it's very clear about what kind of a person I am and how I move through the world. And I get stopped in airports and restaurants everywhere and asked about this necklace. And for me, it's almost a piece of like, this is who I am. And it actually, I'm thinking about it's like a shining light as to like, I'm this heart-centered person. So people tend to reach out to me. And I would say when I'm wearing it, but I have literally worn it 24/7 for the last 3 years. So maybe that says something. The other thing that I mentioned is I used to wear flower dresses when I was a pediatrician, and I have this, I call her a dressmaker. She's a small woman-owned business who makes really cute, fun stuff. And that is sort of my branded attire now, because I feel myself in it. And because it has good energy and it's colorful, and it really does lift my mood and my spirit, whether it's my pajamas. Now pretty much everything I wear is from there. So whether it's my pajamas, which also come from there, or a dress, or my napkins. And so again, it's allowing yourself to show up wherever you are in, your favorite color, or um, a certain type of clothing. It reminds me of that Charlotte's Web where the spider puts radiant in the I think it was radiant pig, but in the spider web. And so this sort of announcement of showing up that way is super powerful. I'm also reminded my grandson loves the color yellow, like really bright yellow. And none of us can figure out why he likes the color yellow. But if you let him pick, like choose anything in a store, he's going to pick the bright yellow thing. But he is just rocks it. He puts on the bright yellow hat and he's happy wearing it. And like we lose that somewhere along the way because we think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have this neon yellow hat. But he loves it. And I wish that we kept more and more of that. You're muted.
What would it feel like to walk through your day radiantly, peacefully you, without apology or armor?
A few takeaways from today's episode are that authenticity is the most efficient way of managing your energy.
Standing out with sincerity invites others to feel safe and also do the same.
Your originality is your offering.
You are phenomenal by being whole. Stand out, shine, and be radiantly, phenomenally you.
We can't wait to meet all of your radiantly, phenomenally shining versions of you. And we hope that we'll connect someday in person. I would love to meet you at a retreat. We would um, love to have you reach out and have us come and speak to your group. Or I would love to work with you on coaching if you want to work on figuring out how to show up belonging less and fitting in and people pleasing, and instead having the courage, which it takes courage and compassion for yourself to show up radiantly and authentically you. Stay tuned for the mindful moment after this episode, and we will be back with part 2 of this episode, The Art of Not Fixing, next week.
Thanks for listening. If our message resonates, we'd love to connect further. Join us for coaching, mindfulness experiences, workshops, and retreats. Invite us to speak at your institution or conference. When you work with us, you don't just consume information, you create real change. Find me Chang Liang at Awakened Breath and Jessie Mahoney at Pause and Presence.
Welcome to today's mindful moment. Today's moment will be a mindful movement exercise in the spirit of yoga being available and accessible to anyone. If it is safe for you to do so, close your eyes and put down anything in your hands. And wherever you are, notice your feet on the ground if you are sitting or standing. Wiggling toes, noticing the four corners of your feet and every smidge of the soles of your feet. And coming up in through your legs to your belly, up into your chest, checking out how you feel. Taking in a big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. With eyes closed, if that's available, and with eyes open, if not, and only if it's safe. Shrug your shoulders all the way up to your ears. Drop your occiput into the shoulders. Squeeze as tight as you absolutely can. Tight, tight, tight. Notice all the sensations. Exhale, drop your shoulders. Notice how it feels. Draw both shoulders back, pinching your scapula together. Notice how it feels. Bringing your shoulders back together. Taking another big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Inhaling and reaching your arms out and up towards the sky, bringing your right thumb and middle finger around the left wrist, reaching tall. Exhale to the right and enjoy your left side body. Inhale, come back to center. Switch hands, tip to the left. Inhale, back to center. Opening arms out, clasp your hands at your sacrum and press your fists towards the floor. If you're sitting, you may want to stand. You can do this in a chair. With hands clasped at the sacrum, drop your chin to your chest and enjoy your neck. 2 breaths here. One more. Releasing hands, shaking them out. Reaching your arms out to the sides and wrapping yourself in a huge hug, bringing your fingers to the medial scapula, squeezing tight, tight, tight. Drop chin to chest once again and enjoy your neck. Inhale, untangle your arms. Press your hands into the side walls, wrists are flexed, spread fingers wide. Notice the energy coming in through your fingers. Relax your hands, wrap yourself in a huge hug the other way, maybe tighter. Wiggle your fingers towards the medial scapula, squeezing as tight as you can, lifting elbows up over your chest, drop your chin to chest and enjoy your neck. Big breath in and out. Chin coming back to neutral. Untangle your arms, lower hands by your sides, shrug shoulders up to ears, pinch your scapula together, bring your occiput into the shoulders, tight, 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 wiggle fingers. Exhale, release your hands and let your palms fall towards the front and enjoy. Big breath in and out. Bring a hand to heart and another hand to tongue. Practice of self-compassion. Yoga is always a practice of self-compassion. Notice your heart under your hands, breathing into the back side of the hands. Huge, long, deep exhale, enjoy. Lowering hands, opening eyes, and coming back together. I hope that little refresh feels amazing, and we'll see you next week.